This is the day where we have 80 jerseys that blend into one blue river. One blue river that flows constantly. The end of the river, the empty end of the sea as one. That's how we roll.
Sing it for Serra.
Hooray for us!
Hello and welcome to the Serra High School Football Podcast. How you doing, Coach Walsh?
I'm doing well. How are you, Amy?
I'm doing great, especially after last weekend here at Poly Day. That was quite an event.
Yeah, it was fun.
Your team saw a 54-16 win over the Bellarmine Bells. It was a really great game, high intensity, skills on every level.
Yeah.
Can you take us through the game?
Yeah, we got off to a blistering start. The first quarter felt like it lasted an hour, or it felt like it lasted a whole game. I remember looking up saying, wow, it's only the first quarter, but just so much activity happened in the first quarter, led by our defense and our special teams. In the entire game, we had 32 offensive plays.
Wow.
In the entire game. And that's I haven't studied that from a data standpoint, but it has to be the lowest amount of offensive plays we've ever had in a game. And to score 54 points with only 32 plays, that means a lot of other things are happening.
Right, and 27 in the first quarter alone, that long quarter that you talked about. I mean, that's
right.
A really high number.
Very, very high number. So we got off to a great start with, just great defense and Jaden Green having some great returns in the return game. Jabari Man blocked a punt that led to a touchdown. So our punt return game was, I thought our special teams game was kind of the star of the show of the entire game. And we really celebrate special teams here. And a lot of the players that don't play quite as much are on special teams, but we also, it's important to us. So we have our starters playing on special teams, and to have Jabari come through, block a punt, and Colin almost had another touchdown. Of course, he's having trouble. The ball doesn't bounce like a rugby ball. I think he's learning. The rugby ball bounces. It's a little bit closer to a soccer ball than a football. So Colin, God bless him, he's had 2 opportunities to score. He's giving it to other players. He is that type of person, very caring, wants other people to succeed more than him. But and then Jabari scoops it up and scores. So it just happened. Everything happened like in a blitzkrieg, like right now fashion to start the game. So it was a very, 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 very quick start here on Poly Day.
Definitely, it was definitely shocking to go that, but it did feel like a long quarter. Now that you bring it back, I was like, remember even by the fourth quarter, I'm like, this game's still going and the clock's running. But good. And then we had Joseph Latu did a 54-yard touchdown return. That was awesome. Keon Loud with his 14-yard touchdown reception, which was great. Yeah. But Jaden with the 3 touchdowns was actually amazing as well. So, and I think the Daily Journal just called him, High School Athlete of the Week or something today. Jaden Green.
Oh, good. I saw that too. That's great. And to see JoJo Latu, getting back to form after his shoulder surgery in the spring, and he's a load when he's running the football. It's a different type of weapon that we have. Obviously, Jaden Green's been doing what he's been doing for many years here, but it's a different type of back where JoJo's a downhill, powerful, bend the pile type of back, and Jaden Green's the shifty, quick. It's a nice change up to have, and obviously Nana Latu's been doing it all year, kind of catching the ball, running the ball, shifty back, downhill back. He's kind of our all-around guy. So it's a very comfortable position to be in as a coach for Coach Bell to have all these options at the running back position. So it was good to see Key get in the end zone. Yep. Catching a football. He's a great addition to the offensive side of the ball. He's been here at Serra. He's really excelled on defense, and I know his heart is in the offense as well. Right. And he's a force on both sides of the ball, which was good to see. So the goal report, we were 11 of 12 on the game.
Wow.
So we just missed that perfect game, which I like because perfection shouldn't necessarily. Right. It's not the standard, although we always strive for it, but. We went 4 for 4 on offense, 4 for 4 on defense, and 3 for 4 on special teams.
That's awesome.
So it was just a complete game, I'd say, overall.
Definitely.
And our team graded out at 88%.
Wow, which is again continuing to increase, right?
Yes.
Last time was
I think 84. I think we dipped a little bit last week at Midi.
Okay.
But we're not the stock market. We're more up than down, but we're we're trending in a positive direction. Our defense graded out at 89%, our offense at 87%. So
that's great.
A team 88%.
It was a little lopsided before at the beginning of the season with offense, kind of coming up. But let's talk about the offense for a little bit because they look great. Like you said, you only have 33 plays, but let's talk a little bit about Maui is firing that ball, and you've got some really great receivers that are coming up and showing to be really strong, and it's great.
What I'd like to see, Jaden Lim, it had a great game.
He did.
And
his dad was so happy.
I'm sure.
He's such a great dude.
I'm sure. Behind every great performance, there's a couple of happy parents.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
And I think it's so good to have him replacing a guy like Jaden Weber, who's at Sac State playing up there now. It's very, very hard to do, and he's done a magnificent job jumping in there. He's running great routes and being a threat on the edge and a deep threat, and he's becoming a popular target for Milwaukee, which. You see a guy like Harrison who's had an exceptional year catching the ball, and he's a different type of receiver, clearly, with the height and the hands and the reach and the jumping and all sorts of different things that can stress a defense out. And then now throw Jaden Lim in there with Charlie Willie, and Augusta's had some great games, and it's really nice to see the offense, which we knew wasn't going to be the defense starting week 1.
Right.
We knew that. I mean, when you have 9 returners on defense and they're all stars, it's people would say, "Wow, I think Serra's going to have a good defense this year." It doesn't take a genius to figure that out.
Right.
Particularly after
we've watched them rise for years, but yes.
Right, but then it's like, what's the offense going to do, or how's the special teams going to come through, losing great kickers and so to see that formulate in a WCAL game over a 48-minute period. On Polynesian Day against Bellarmine High School it's that for me as the coach, it brings a level of satisfaction because here at Serra we're not we never get complacent in things that we've done or the past we've talked about me or us wanting to celebrate that more, but it's just not really in our nature. It's all about getting better and striving to be the best we can be on a daily basis and continuing on a positive trajectory through whenever that day ends.
Right. No, and as you were talking, I was kind of thinking, what is the, because time and time again, when you lose the seniors, right, we're losing like 32 this year, right? And, it's too early in the season to talk about, obviously, next season, but I'm just wondering how you have these wonderful receivers that are now, in senior year getting, a lot, all the play time, right? But they didn't get it much last year, but which is, I know that's, but I'm just wondering the process by which you train so that you can be competitive that next year when they hit the field for game experience.
Well, the training happens all year round, every single day, in practice, in the weight room. The guys that are not playing this year need to be the most improved players next year.
Exactly.
Okay. And it's a tradition. It's like the legacy of this isn't the NFL where we can have Tom Brady be our quarterback for 21 years, clearly. So being able to pass along or wanting to be a part of building the legacy that's been laid down before us is something in a program that's been developed for 23 years now. It's kind of on a roll that way. So the juniors and sophomores, or even, those guys that are looking up and like, gosh, I wish I was on the field more. It's going to be their legacy next year. Like, they're going to have to replace those people. So when you look at Joey Villaroman graduating and Jaden Weber graduating and Seamus Gilmartin graduating, and all of a sudden we're never going to be able to complete a pass ever again. Thankfully, Milwaukee's back or whatever, but still, he lost all those weapons. We lost everybody. It's like, well, what's going to happen to the passing game? And there's questions, there's doubt about it. There is always in those situations, particularly with our receiver and our passing game. That was the big question for this year. We lost some offensive linemen that, are now formulating and growing and responding and those sort of things. Like Jonah Alapati's come in and snapped the ball.
Right.
We had Mokel last year was absolutely fantastic at center. He was one of the great overachieving Padres where you come in and you're like, man, that O-line not going to be very good with that guy at center. Like, if you just look at it on paper,
right,
or with your eyes, like, that guy's not big. But Mokel was fantastic. And who's going to replace him?
Right.
Jonah's done a great job of snapping that football. There were actually a couple high snaps last week for the first time ever. We still corralled them. They weren't 20-yard shots behind. And, you watch some of these games, you're like, absolutely. You forget that we're even in the shotgun every snap.
Well, you forget that that's even something that you have to worry about because you're so worried about making the.
That's right.
The pass or you don't
have to worry about it. Exactly. Really, is what you're saying. We don't have to worry about it because Jonah hasn't given us a reason to worry about it. He snaps the ball, puts it on Malawaki's hands, and we're off and running. So these are the things that in a year turnover, a turnover type of cyclical game that we're in high school football, we're always trying to manage that change. Sometimes there's a nice balance between, hey, we lost 6 seniors and everyone's coming back, or sometimes it's that way. I don't really stress too much about that. But when it comes to our scout teams, we here at Serra coach our scout teams knowing that those are going to be the guys next year.
Right. So
I actually take offense to coaches that don't coach the scout teams as hard as they would their own players, being the starters.
Yeah.
Because first of all, they're all our players, and second of all, those players are the ones that we're going to be asking for to make the plays next year. So why take a year off? Like, hey, just show a card and let the kids run around and hope for the best. That's not our culture here. That's not our culture. And it's not our culture because we talk a lot about the bottom of the fire. We care about, our MVP to player number 80 the same. You can say that, but if they're not being coached that way, then it's a lie.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything. So the expectations of showing up on time, having, being a positive member of society, classroom diligence,
grades up, yeah.
Team GPA isn't just for the starters, right? So that 3.6 GPA is all 80 of us. Scout teams, like, wait a sec, you're not stepping with the proper foot. The card says to do this, you didn't do it. What's the matter with, like, putting pressure on our players in a positive way, but all the time is, I would say, the direct answer to your question. So next year, when we come out and we're replacing the team, basically, we're not starting from ground zero. We're starting from, maybe step 3 or 4 in a 10-step process.
Great. That's a great answer. Because I know that I've gotten that question a lot, saying, like, ask coach this, how do you build that program to be successful, not just that one year? Because it really, it takes a lot, like you said, a lot of balance, a lot of, overall coaching in every single area, right?
Sure.
But you have to build that within the program, or else
you'll
have one good year. Think of like little AYSO soccer. You have a great team of girls together, and then next year.
Then next year you're like, oh, right? God, this is terrible.
Exactly. So it's like, but built in the program. I get it. Awesome. Well, the offense did great, and it was just overall a wonderful day out here. We thank all the Poly Day volunteers, sponsors, participants. It was just a wonderful way to celebrate a wonderful community. So thank you for that. So today I did a little call out on Instagram to find out some Ask Coach the questions. People like that. A lot of our players actually asked a few questions, so we'll get into that in a second. But I'll go with some of the long drawn out answers. This is probably not relevant for this week because we had 27 points in the first quarter. But one of the questions was, often your team starts slow and then dominates. Can you talk about the team perseverance?
Sure. I think the fast start mantra is always it's a wonderful thing, but it's not always reality. And I don't think we would choose to measure ourselves at how was the first drive?
Right.
Like, it's just not a really measuring stick for me. It's like, how did the game go? Right. So you can double bogey the first hole and then play great, or you can double bogey the last hole and you still play great. So, like, taking a collective approach to it is how I like to think about our game and our approach and kind of the energy of the game. And I think sometimes people can be too fired up to start a game. It's like, oh, we're so fired up, and then you dip and then you lose the game. So for me, an even keel approach, clearly if we could start every single first quarter like we did last, yes, of course.
Wouldn't that be great?
Wouldn't that be great? But the other team is fresh and they have a game plan, and, they have a plan too. So I think it's hard to have that miraculous great start. For me, I'd rather finish great. And our program, the weight room, the gassers, the track, all that, is to be built up so we can compete over 48 minutes, which is what we're going to need this weekend. It's 48-minute affair. And we play the first minute as hard as the 48th minute, and And that's more of my approach to it. So I think if that question goes back to perseverance, it's more about living in that moment and not getting too caught up in what happened in the first half, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, but putting our best effort into every single minute of the game that we perform, and then add it up over 48 and see what happens.
Right. Well, good answer. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it too is just you're sizing up your opponent and seeing, you got to see what you're up against sometimes too. So if you do start slow, it's kind of because you're figuring out how tough is your talent, right?
and I will say, and the other team's coached too, and they watch film as well. And a lot of times we see things that we've never seen before, either on the defensive front or an offensive play. Like look at St. Francis.
Right.
They came out and threw a brilliant double pass, and we weren't ready for it. They caught us off guard.
Totally.
And
it's a great play.
It was a great play, but there's a lot of things that go into that first quarter starting fast thing.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that. You touched on one of the other questions that I'm going to ask you, which is somebody was asking how many lift days, film days, how do you squeeze it all in? And you mentioned gassers, so you obviously have some sort of a schedule. Like how do you squeeze it all in?
Sure. So we have a base plan in a 7-day week, basically. And we play Saturday games here. So I'll speak about a Saturday game. Monday of a Saturday game week is game review, lifting, running, goal review. All of our coaches need to have the grades and goals done by our meeting, which is 5:00-ish on Monday. Tuesday is we do helmets and shoulder pads only. And it's an install day. We lift for 45 minutes after school, and we practice from 4 to 6. That's what we do. And then Tuesday of a Saturday week is our gasser day. So it's more of a heavy conditioning day. It's full pads. It's our heavy day. There's more hitting involved. I will say for people out there, like we never go to the ground. People fall to the ground, but we never, ever, ever practice where we're tackling a human being to the ground, which might shock people because I think we're pretty good tacklers. We're good tacklers because we have good players. We're also good tacklers because I feel like our bodies are fresh. We're good tacklers because we do practice tackling, but we're not tearing our bodies apart to practice tackling. There's an old school mentality in football where you create toughness by beating the hell out of each other. I don't believe in that, and I never really have. There is an element to it, but I don't believe that I get tougher by beating the crap out of my best friend. Now let's attack that sled. Let's bring it to the ground, that sort of stuff. We tackle little rings. I mean, it's just there's different ways to do it these days where we're preserving the body so we can be in our best mental and physical state when the game actually matters. So that's a Tuesday. Wednesday is a optional. Sometimes it's helmets and shoulder pads, and sometimes it's just helmets. And I make that determination based on, I'm off a day. Tuesday is helmets and shoulder pads. We call it shells. Wednesday is our full pad day. Now I'm talking about Thursday. Thursday is an optional. Sometimes we just go helmets. If I feel like we've had a good first 2 days and we're in a good mental space and the team can handle it, then I'll just go helmets only. It's still a fast practice and we're getting, it's not a walkthrough. And some teams can handle that, some teams don't. And if I feel like we're lackadaisical and not having a good week, then on that Thursday we'll go helmets and shoulder pads again. And then Friday's our run-through day. We don't call it a walkthrough. It's our run-through day and our chapel day. We'll also lift on Thursday for 45 minutes. Friday is our run-through day in chapel, and then Saturday's game day.
Nice. That's good. Thank you.
And it's that way all the time. It never changes.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving along. What is this season, who is the hardest team you've played so far and why? Let's include the preseason. Okay. Well, our closest game on the scoreboard was Folsom. That was a game we came out, started really fast. The De La Salle game, probably for the duration of the game, was the closest. We pulled away at the end. Right. So I would say it's probably one of those two games. Okay. One of those two games. One of those two teams, yeah. Yeah, one of those two teams to start. It was 10-7 at halftime against Central Catholic. So that was, going back to the how did you start type concept. So those games were tough, but I think probably De La Salle in its entirety, I would say.
And it wasn't until the pick six and kind of the last 2 touchdowns at the end where it was like, okay,
we can breathe a little sigh
the
of relief.
Folsom game on the other side, like it never really felt threatened in a weird way. I mean, the defense they didn't score till 5 minutes left in the game. Right. So it was 21-0 all game. And then the offense, we sputtered a little bit. So I would say De La Salle.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And this question is, if you could rematch any team again, who would it be? So this can go on your entire football career.
Wow. Well, I would say in 2004, we lost to Valley Christian. We would have won 2 league titles in 3 years. I would say if I could have a moment back, this whole game was incredible. But in 2004, we lost on a Hail Mary with 4.6 seconds left.
Oh, that's a rough.
We were winning by 4, and they had to go. The ball was on the -31, so they had to go 69 yards in one play. I had my speech ready to go in my head and the whole deal, and they completed a ball. It was terrible. And they won the game in walk-off. The fans emptied the game. I would say if I could have a moment back, I would take that moment back right there.
And what would you do differently?
Well, we have Warrior Prevent in now. So I would run Warrior Prevent. Warrior Prevent was a child of that moment.
Wow.
And I would say the strategic thing that I would do, and kind of hence what we have in Warrior Prevent, is we take our best cover guy and put it on their best guy. So if I'm the other team and I have to win the game on one play, I'm probably going to design a play for that one person.
Of course. Right.
Of course. As just naturally, of course. Right?
Because I've strategized for so long over this, but just mean that.
But you sit in a chair like this, 18 years later, 19 years later, and you say, of course they're going to throw it to him. Of course. I mean, everyone on the planet knows they're going to throw it to him, including us. We had 4 Padres around the ball at the time, and the guy made a great play, and he walked in for the last 20 yards. But now we have a strategy where we put our best guy on their best guy. So at the very least, he's got to run through him or around him or
right.
whatever.
Make it more difficult.
Make it a little bit more difficult. So that I would say I would want that moment back. There's a couple De La Salle games that I wish we could have back. Losing in awful fashion. And there was a game against Aragon in 2004 where we lost in overtime. We fumbled on the 1-inch line in a CCS game. And that was a tough moment. So yeah, sometimes I like these fireside talks to talk about miserable things. I don't know why.
They come up.
They come up, and I think the misery of some of the things that we went through just remind people that we haven't always been, number one in Northern California. It's been a building block type deal. So I would say those are the top moments.
Definitely. Thank you. And then I see that some of our players have actually put in questions. So I'm going to kind of switch it around a little bit because several names are answered or are asked about, like, just what do you think of? So if I were to ask you about, I'm going to ask you 5 names and I want you to say one word about what you think their strength is as a player.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do it that way.
Yeah.
D-Boy, Danny New.
He's our enforcer.
Okay. Jabari Man, number 5.
Talent.
Joe Bay.
2 words. I think he's our alpha male.
Okay.
Which is going to make everyone mad.
Keon Loud.
I don't like this 1-word stuff.
I'll give you 2.
No, okay. Keon's multiple. Like, he can do so many different things. So I would say just having multiple talents of being able to play on both sides of the ball. Nice. And special teams. And
Jaden Green's the final for this episode, but I think we'll do this in the future. This is kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean,
with other players, there's a lot.
Right. Jay Green, overachiever.
Nice.
Yep.
Great. Well, they're all great players, and I'm sure we could go on and on and on, and we will bring. This is kind of fun to go down the roster on some of these guys.
Sure.
Awesome. And okay, so let's go for 2 more of these, and then we got to get to talking about Riordan. How did the bottom of the fire guys do these past 2 games? Because they got a lot more playtime.
Yeah, good. I mean, we've maintained our goals, and our grades they're all collective. I mean, we don't pull people out. So I would say you look at the last play of the game last week. Spink,
yes,
was playing D-line.
He was very excited.
Very excited. Hurried the passer. He made a great pass rush. Hurried the passer. Number 3, he's a great player. As he's throwing it, forces an errant pass, hits the quarterback, and Mokel picks the ball off.
I know.
So 2 goals there. 17 points or less is our defensive goal. They're knocking on the door to ruin that goal. And we only had 1 takeaway in the game. 2 takeaways is our other goal. So on that one play, Spink kind of led us to getting 2 goals, really, with Mokel with a great pick. And so I would say very good. I'm very pleased with them. And as we discussed earlier, most of those guys are younger players that we're going to be leaning on next year.
It's awesome. It's great to see. It's great that they're getting some game experience. It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And the last question I'm going to ask before we move on to the Riordan game is, I thought this was kind of cool, given your experience in bringing next level flag football to children everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. How do you feel about flag football now becoming an Olympic sport?
Oh, it's awesome. I think it's so cool. And not only for boys, but for girls, because I think it's both, right? Female and male winter Olympic sport. That's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to see that. It's certainly not going to hurt marketing for next level right? Now that it's being offered at the highest level of amateur sports. So I'm thrilled about it. I'm very, very excited about it. I think it's great.
I think it's great too. Your next level program.
Maybe
awesome.
A next level flag football player will end up in the Olympics.
Let's hope so.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to celebrate there.
Very cool. Well, I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
Okay, Riordan. This weekend we play Riordan at 1:30 on Saturday at home. They're the only other undefeated team in the WCAL.
Yep.
It's going to be a pretty good matchup. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about Riordan, and then we'll kind of go through it there.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully in the last few years we've had opportunity to play in championship games, and this year the championship game, as it stands right now in week 8, 9, and 10 are left, is the only 2 undefeated teams left, which is the Riordan Crusaders and the Serra Padres. So I'm very excited about having the opportunity to be in championship games. I think it's what's kept me around, kept me at Serra, kept me engaged in this great league. It's been Bellarmine, it's been St. Francis, there's been Valley Christian. We've had all sorts of different opponents that have kind of risen up in any given year. And this year it's Riordan. They're having a great season. They only have 1 loss this year. It was in a preseason game against a great LA team. So they're 6-1 right now. They have a fantastic coach. They have a fantastic football roster. They got great players. They're going to put a lot of stress on us this weekend, and that's the way we want it. We want to be in these situations where we get an opportunity to be the best we can be in the brightest lights, and that's what only championship games can do.
Right.
The other games they weigh the same, but they really don't. In the sense that the winner of this game is. There's still, again, 3 weeks left. You never know what's going to happen, but clearly the winner of this game is number 1 in the WCAL. It comes down to 48 minutes of football.
Absolutely.
And I'm really honored that it's one of our archdiocesan schools. It's Archbishop Riordan. We've been, it's a trophy game. It's the John Baxter Trophy game.
Wow.
So Coach Langridge, who was a Serra Padre, coached at Archbishop Riordan, was the head coach. Coach Baxter coached at Archbishop Riordan, coached at Serra. So Coach Langridge being that's kind of, and Coach Baxter Coach Langridge, and he's a great man. And Sean comes to a lot of the games and is still really a part of the program. In this is a very special game that way. So add on top of that it is a trophy game, and whoever wins the game gets to take the trophy home for a year. And there's a ceremony after the game, which is only going to add to it. So there's multiple trophies on this game. So it's what I think people, choose to go to schools like Serra and Riordan is to play in games like this. So we know we got our hands full. Archbishop Riordan is, I think, on pace to set records for scoring points. They're fantastic. There's talent all over the field. The quarterback, while still young, is a year older.
Right.
And he's playing catch extremely well. They've developed their run game in the last few weeks. They're really running the ball well, which is a problem, particularly since they have so many weapons at the wide receiver. I've never seen a high school team in Northern California, in my opinion, that has as many talented wide receivers on one football team.
Wow.
Number 1, number 11,
statement.
number 6, number 17, number 4. I mean, there's a ton of guys over there that are going to really, really stress out our defense. And we started this show off with, people knew, hey, Serra defense this year.
Right.
This is probably the ultimate test of the year when it comes to stopping an offense like this. And Coach Adair has done a great job of calling the plays and putting it together. So I can't say enough about it. It's gonna be a great day on 20th Avenue for the fans. It's gonna be stressful. There's pressure involved. But as a competitor, as a coach, I mean, this is what you want.
Right.
This is the type of game you want to coach in, you want to play in. And so I'm excited to have our Archdawson brother, now co-ed, brother and sister school coming
brother
down. It used to be, only an all-boys school until the last couple of years, I think. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun day. It's going to be a tough game.
Great. And when was the last time that, or I guess how long have we had the trophy?
The trophy? I don't know. I can't remember. I think I know Coach Bell beat us. Yeah, when Coach Bell there's another thing. Coach Bell graduated from Riordan. Coach Bell coached at Riordan. Coach Bell has 3 wins against Serra, 2 as a player, 1 as a coach. So I think the last time we lost to Riordan was when he was coaching. They put up 70 points on us or something up at San Francisco City College. It was a tough day for the Padres. Happy for Coach Bell. Now that we know Coach Bell, but It was a very rough day, and that's kind of what we need to avoid this week, is that type of a game where someone can fact check it, but it was high 60s or 70 to 40 or 50. And so that's the game we're trying to avoid, if you will.
Right.
I guess if we get into a game like that, hopefully we're on the right side of that, but that I think that was the last time, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I found my research could only go back that Riordan hasn't beat us in 8 years. Would that be right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
Would that be 2015?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it was 2015. It was 2015. Great job, Amy.
Thanks.
Wow, look at you. There's an internet out there.
Yeah, there is.
Very proud of you.
So fast.
Great job. Wow, it was 2015. Thank you.
So I wondered, does the home field advantage matter at all, or?
So I've talked a lot about this here at Serra. I mean, I think playing day games for night teams can be an advantage for sure. I stand by that. And someone who's in that kind of rhythm of, we pregame meal at 5 and we kick off at 7 and the band is there and the lights are going and it's Friday Night Lights.
Right.
So this is the one team in the league that doesn't have lights as well. So they're used to playing on Saturdays. Bellarmine had their first day game last week. So I look at that and I'm like, oh wow, this is Bellarmine's first day game. That probably means something. It's different.
Right.
At the very least, it's just different. And waking up in the morning and eating breakfast instead of having a pregame meal of whatever, or going to school and then gathering yourself and then going to pregame meal in the cafeteria, then putting your pads on, the sun's going down, and the lights come on, like it's football time.
Right.
We don't have that here. And so when we play in a day game, we're used to waking up early and that sort of stuff. So I would say generally it's an advantage, but I don't think so this week because Riordan also doesn't have lights, and they've played several day games this year at Riordan. So I would say no. All
right. Well, it's going to be a good matchup. Just for any fans that are wondering, Riordan beat Mitty 56-42 last week, and we shut out Mitty 42-0. I know you love football math, so I just had to put that in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it means absolutely nothing, but just so that everybody knows.
Well, yeah, we don't do that, Amy.
I know. It's just a reminder. It's just a reminder.
You can do it. Fans can do it. I don't do it. It means absolutely nothing to me.
Definitely.
And I, kids are kids and players are players, but football math is the arithmetic of the devil.
Right.
So let's not do it.
All right. Well, I just wanted to put that in there. So if anybody wondered how they did last week. But
yes.
Anyway, this week's going to be great. Kickoff is at 1:30. And this, our athletics director, Justin Ferdinand, has, I think he's going to invite all middle schoolers to come and bring their student ID cards for free admission. So
awesome.
Hopefully we'll have the stands filled with our students, Serra Padres, come on out, and also with prospective students. So
that'd be great.
Awesome. Well, go Padres. Thanks, Coach.
Go Padres.